again, everybody. This is Ken Allison, and today, along with Lake Mark, the Anderson Independent Mail, we're going to talk some high school football, mostly high school football around the upstate of South Carolina. But I think we need to start off at this time. Now, the show will be going to be a week before we do another one. But Lake, let's talk about this horrors with the weather and what it's done, other than the damage and deaths and horrible things that have happened to some of the people involved. And let's talk a minute about the situation as how has it affected high school sports in general, not just football, but high school sports in general, especially from Columbia on down in the Low State.
Yeah, great. And again, it's a pleasure to be here with you again, as always, Ken. Luckily for us in the upstate, the rain and the weather didn't affect too much last Friday. I know some games got pushed up their start time, some to 6, some to 6:30. One of our teams played on Thursday night. But other than that, the upstate really kind of dodged a bullet here, I think. But when you get down to the Midlands and the Low Country, that's a completely different story, as you said. There were some teams that did not get to play at all on Friday. They tried to move it to Saturday. That didn't work, so the league then said try and play it on Monday or Tuesday. That didn't happen either. So right now there's a lot of teams in the lower part of the state, especially on the coast, that are really in limbo right now of what they're going to be doing this Friday night.
They haven't even gone to school, many of them, and some of them might not be able to get to school. And there was a picture on the internet of the Conway football stadium that actually looked like a giant swimming pool. It was huge. I mean, way up deep in it. And I would guess that the same thing may have happened at Myrtle Beach, North Myrtle Beach, Socastee, that whole area. And then around the city of Columbia, I'm sure that happened. In Florence, all of these people had these problems. McClellanville.
Yeah, if you look at some pictures of Columbia, the Congaree River overflowed over there in the West Columbia, Brooklyn-Casey area.
Yeah.
I know I have some family down there, and luckily the areas they're in must be on higher ground because they're not in much flooding. But when you go over near the Two Notch Road area, near the Lugoff-Elgin area, that's seen some severe flooding. Really the entire, I guess you would say, the western part of the state, especially southwestern part of the state, that part has gotten hammered with the rain. That is, I know there's and there's even some talk now that the playoffs could be pushed back a week as well because a lot of these schools aren't going to be able to finish their games in time. And there was some controversy. The league was saying play Monday and then you play another game Friday, so they wanted to possibly play 2 games in a week.
But they can't play in these stadiums now.
No, they couldn't play now. So, like I said, it's going to be tough. But if we have to push the season back a week or two, I think that's fine.
Yeah, they're going to have to, it appears. What was that scenario you mentioned that we're talking about, the Class A maybe, or 2A?
Class 2A was possibly going to push its season forward another week. And the current schedule, Classes 1, 2, and 3A all finish a week before Class 4A finishes. So how it looks currently on the schedule before any of this rain and all this Hurricane Joaquin mess happened was playoff first round for Class A, AA, and AAA were going to be the same week as Class 4A was wrapping up its regular season. That is clearly not going to be the case now. So there's a lot of calendar looking that people are going to have to do, and like I said, I'm not sure what you can do because you're not sure how long some of these areas are going to be able to get drained out, how bad the damage is at some of these stadiums.
If they're going to be safe to use, if the stands will be safe, if the foundation of the stands have been washed out, that would be a horrible thing. Yeah. I'd hate to be in a press box at some of those stadiums and the thing cave in.
Yeah, it's like I said, I'm not sure. You're probably going to, I can see a lot of neutral site games coming up.
Sure, have to, yeah.
There's going to have to be, I think. You also have to wonder, the this flood could displace a lot of families, I think.
Yeah, yes, it could. And the same thing would count as Ray Tanner said about the Gamecocks and their game. And at this recording on Wednesday the 7th, we don't know anything for sure about that one. I haven't heard it. Have you?
It just broke about 30 minutes ago
Okay.
on Twitter. That game is going to be moved to Baton Rouge. So
Okay.
it was a home game for South Carolina. It's now been turned into a home game for LSU. Not like that. Not like the setting was going to change the outcome of that game by any measures at all. But
Yeah,
still,
but make it worse.
That's lost revenue. But I think there's some talks possibly with USC getting part of the revenue from this game that LSU would not.
Yeah.
So they're not losing that much revenue, but you're also thinking about all the incoming flux of population that come in for the weekend for that type of game.
Now, the revenue has already been lost by a lot of the merchants and hotels and restaurants and things down there in Columbia, but now that they won't even get that little bit.
Another thing that was happening, the fair starting as well down there.
Ah, yeah,
And so
right.
I'm not sure if they're even going to be able to have the fair.
Yeah.
If people can get there or not to it.
Yeah.
So this entire flooding situation. It's not just going to be a 1 week thing. We're going to be dealing with this for a few months.
A long time. One of the things that Ray Tanner mentioned was the fact that them trying to have this game, that police, security, and emergency personnel that would normally be at a ball game are busy. Now, that same scenario has to hold for high schools. Yes. Because all the high schools have extra help of various kinds, but those people now are too busy trying to do something, rescue people and help people and that kind of thing.
Yeah, this is. I would not be surprised if there are a lot of games that don't get off.
Don't get played at all.
The lower part of the state, I could easily see being 2-3 weeks behind.
Yeah.
By the end of the season, so this could. And you also have to think with all this getting pushed back. What it's going to do to the basketball season as well, and the wrestling season coming up in about a month. So,
oh yeah, well, the girls' volleyball is on, and the cross country is on, and all those things.
Yeah,
so
I know the Schlotsky's Invitational that we hold here in Anderson every year that got postponed. I'm not sure if it's been canceled or rescheduled. But there's usually a lot of teams that come in for that. Lower part of the state, I know of 3 meets that were canceled. So. This
fall baseball to some places, and
this is probably the only sport that hadn't been affected, at least in our area, was volleyball.
Yeah,
they're indoors, but there again, you go to the lower part of the state, teams like Bishop England that are powerhouses in volleyball. Some of those teams down there, if they can't go to school, they can't play.
Yeah, and they can't get to the school in many cases.
And that's the rule. If school is canceled for a day, athletics are canceled for that day.
Yeah. They'll have to do a waiver situation on that, I think.
And we had that situation last basketball season with Pendleton. There was the rainstorm, the ice storm that came in. They were supposed to play a game against, cannot remember the team, I believe, but I believe it might have been Keenan. I can't remember. But the snowstorm came in. They were not able to play the game. They didn't have school that day.
Right.
The schedule had already been pushed back before, and so they just decided to waive that. So the high school league can waive that, but it has to be under extreme circumstances.
Yeah.
But,
well, this is pretty extreme.
Yeah. If there's anything that would qualify, this is it.
Yeah. Still get a little closer there, if you don't mind. Okay.
No problem.
Now we need to move on to what happened around our area last week. And kind of go through those. I will say that there was a monster, gigantic game played, and Westside came out on top at Hillcrest, and it went into 2 overtimes. That was the game you covered?
Yes, I was there.
You chose that one, so go ahead and start with that one if you would, Lake.
Well, I talked to Scott early before the game, and usually we'd think between Westside and Hillcrest that would be a high-scoring ball game, and under normal circumstances, it would have been. But he also told me with the rain and the weather that was coming in, it was not. It was probably going to be a game low-scoring, kind of an ugly game, and it was. Neither quarterback really got into a rhythm. The running game was not able to really get going because the turf was in such bad shape. I overheard the Hillcrest athletic director saying that the damage from the rain and also playing on the field was going to cause about $5,000 worth of damage that they were going to have to fix. So, but there were some big plays in the special teams game for Westside. Of course, they had a long touchdown return on a blocked field goal by Matthew Martin for 65 yards. But other than that, their offense was held in check for most of the game. But in the fourth quarter, of course, Hillcrest broke a 51-yard run to take the lead. And then in the closing seconds, and I mean about 14 seconds to go in the game, Chance Poore hit a 31-yard field goal, I believe, to tie the game and send it to overtime. So big kick by him there. And then in the first overtime, he had to kick another 31-yard field goal to send it to double overtime. So big night there for their kicker. He had a pressure-packed situation twice, came through. And then, of course, Westside was able to score on a 7-yard pass to Antonio Lomax to get the eventual game-winning touchdown. But it was a very physical game, a very intense game, but that win gives Westside a big leg up in the region standings heading.
It sure does. I guess now you got to consider them the favorite at this point.
I think so.
So that was huge for them. And this week they play.
This week they are on the road again. They are traveling to Easley. And, of course, the Green Wave are coming off a 31-24 loss to T.L. Hanna from last
Now,
week.
they put up more fight than I thought they would with Hanna.
Yeah, they would. They did. Weather kind of affected that one, too, a little bit. Not near as much as the West Side game.
Yeah.
Alex Meredith still threw for over 330 yards.
Kind of norm now, isn't it?
Easley's quarterback had a good night as well. He threw for 290 yards. Had a few interceptions in there, though, that kind of cost him the game. But it was another good win for Hanna. It moves them to 2-0 in the region as well.
Yeah.
They are now in a three-way tie with Westside and Lawrence for first place 2 weeks in.
I had not realized, I don't know, it had escaped my mind Lawrence was that until I read your column and saw that. And though Lawrence has they have a tough time with, both these schools have a tough time with Lawrence.
Yeah. And speaking of Lawrence, Hanna goes to them this Friday. So a long bus ride for them, first off. Longest one they're going to face all year, except what may happen or may not happen in the playoffs. But they're, as I've said many times on this broadcast, they are a very physical team. Not the most explosive on offense. They remind me a lot of BHP, actually. Very, very athletic on defense. Probably not the most explosive on offense, but they're efficient in what they do. So this will be another big test for Hanna coming up. And as far as Westside, Easley is not a bad team. I think they're a lot better than their 0-2 record in region. But it is still a game that Westside, I believe, should win. Their defense should be able to stop Easley, I think. I
would think right now it appears to me as if Westside would be a favorite from unless something happens from here on out. Mm-hmm. That would be a mild favorite. And people like Greenwood, they have a way of beating Westside and Hanna all the time, and they exploded last week at Greenville. Mm-hmm. Of course, a lot of people have.
Yes, this is a key 3-week stretch for Westside coming up. They have at Easley this Friday, go to Greenville next Friday. That's the game they should win. Greenville's defense has been unable to stop many people.
Yeah,
and then they have a game against Lawrence at home. All three of those I think are winnable games for the Rams, and then they have the final 2 games against Greenwood and Hanna. How they do against Greenwood, I think, will go a long way. That's been one team that has basically owned this region.
Oh, yeah.
As far as I can remember.
Yeah, as far as I can remember. Yeah. Think about it now. Yeah. Back in the 50s, they were the powerhouse team. Mm-hmm. But the powerhouse teams back then were Greenwood. They were Parker High in Greenville and Greenville High, mm-hmm. and Spartanburg High. Yeah. And occasionally Boys High would get in there with them, and later Hanna. But Greenwood has ruled the roost around here for a long time.
And they're 1-1 right now. It's pretty clear